Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to Family Office Insights. We have a wonderful guest today, which if you signed up, you know. Oh no, don't put him away. That's cute.
Well,
Hi.
I'm giving her a little food. She'll be back. But
So I'm here with David. We've been talking for about 15 minutes. He's absolutely fabulous. And you're in for a real treat today because I know it's been in the news, the Metaverse, right? Facebook changed their holding company to Metaverse. Everybody's been talking about the Metaverse. And much like other things in our lives, there's some truth to everything and some of it's a bunch of nonsense. So what David has, I've told him what the family offices have been saying about the Metaverse. And he's promised to deal with the confusion and lay it out in a way that we can all understand. And then you're going to have time to ask questions. It technically ends at 2:45. If we're asking questions, I'm happy to go to 3:15. So that's up to you guys. But in the meantime, David, teach us the Metaverse.
thank you, Wendy. Hi again to all my friends at Family Office Insights. I'm David Siegel. I'm in Washington, D.C. And today I'm just going to give a 20-minute presentation on what is the Metaverse. I am raising a venture fund to invest in these companies, but I just want to deconfuse you and try to give you the right idea. It's really just a presentation of information and happy to answer any questions. A lot of people think that the Metaverse is going to be something you just see with goggles or glasses, and it's kind of a simple thing. There's only a couple aspects to it. And in fact, Metaverse is more like this, is going to have a lot of aspects that I think will really be the evolution of the web itself. And I want to show you that. I'm going to try to make it visual and show you several of the aspects that I think may interest you. So I'm going to share my screen. And it's just going to take a second to get revved up here. And here, so you should see what is the Metaverse, right? And here I am in the corner somewhere. Wendy, can you confirm that? Does it look right?
Yes, it looks perfect.
Okay, good. So great. So my name is David Siegel. In 2010, I wrote a book about the Metaverse, actually, but we didn't call it the Metaverse back then. And now I'm pleased to say we are finally starting to build a world I've been describing for about 20 years. It's been a little impatient, but finally it's coming. And it brings together the best of VR, AR, blockchain, and a bunch of open standards to create an open platform that I think will be larger and more important than the web itself. So in the next 20 minutes, I'll give an overview of where I think we're going. Mark Zuckerberg has said, you may have heard this, we will effectively transition from a social media company to being a metaverse company. Now, we can't trust everything Mark Zuckerberg says, and he has his own goals. But today, almost 10,000 people at Facebook are now developing AR, augmented reality, and VR, virtual reality devices and experiences. And that's about a fifth of the company. Next, soon, and we know that Facebook has announced their name Meta. So they're committed, and other companies, other big companies are also committed. But I wouldn't take their version of it as what I think will happen. So today I want to talk about what is it. So to keep it simple, I think it's the real-time location-aware web. It's not all about avatars and 3D at all. I'm going to define it much more broadly than you may have heard. It's all connected using open standards, just the way the web itself is. So here's kind of a way I think of it, a bit of a matrix for it. If everything is connected, we will have new experiences in the fictional realm, the game realm. But in an augmented game, for example, could be one that's in both. You play in the real world, but you're playing a game. And it's going to depend on some displays and some technology coming along, but all that is on the horizon. But a lot of it you'll just see with a flat display or even through your earbuds. It's the phones and tablets and displays we already have today. It's all the devices we have today, nothing special. And so I think a little bit which devices we use. And I divide it into fiction, the gaming world, and the real world. And I think the real world is most of it. So more and more we will augment our experience, and many of those experiences will just be data feeds from the connected web. We'll see how this plays out in some examples. So yeah, on the fiction side, we know about games and they're driving it. And some of you may play in some of these immersive 3D environments. You may wear goggles. You may have had that experience. And many of us play just on our phones or our computer screen. Now, I would call that the multiverse. I think Zuckerberg's idea is more the multiverse. Websites, games, places you can go. You log in, you enter that world. It's a gated community. Each of these has to create logins, identity, security, avatars, points. They need a physics engine. They have to handle thousands of users. They have to have sophisticated servers. So it's really hard to build from scratch because you have to build so much infrastructure. But what if we just turn this around and put the human at the center? What if you could just enter any world, any part of any world, and you're already logged in and you're carrying everything you need and you have any number of avatars you want to use and then you just go seamlessly from place to place. This to me is the metaverse. Everything connects and you are at the center and anyone can just add on to it the same way we make a web page, which is not hard. Do you remember, did you see Wreck-It Ralph? If you haven't seen Wreck-It Ralph, you really should. There's the power strip where the characters could enter several games through their cables. And the metaverse will be kind of like that. You'll go into different realms, but they'll all connect. And by building common infrastructure, it'll be easier to build these worlds. So anyone can add on to what others are already building. And if you need to pay to go somewhere, or you need to pay to do something and have the rights to do something, you can do that with money or with tokens. This is just not going to be something special that a small number of companies controls. Now, much of what I'm going to talk about and examples I will give are not about games. That's kind of most of the end of my game talk. They're about what happens when we create the real-time web in the real world, the real-time location-aware web in the real world. So today you can think of it like Google Earth, okay? Google Earth can't show you anything happening right now in real time. It's static. In fact, it could be months or even years old, right? But imagine Google Earth with all the parts working and everything flowing, data flowing in real time. And the idea is to add real-time heat maps of traffic, pedestrians, construction, wind, noise, fire, smoke, anything that's relevant to you. You could look up and you could see actual flights in the sky at that moment, the real airplanes, even though you can't see them, you could get the data about them, or all the drones, or the view from the roof of a building, looking down on yourself, looking back up. This is the real-time web, regardless of which device you use to experience it. Now, much of it will be digital twins of everything. If you've heard of the term digital twin, I want you to associate that with metaverse, because that's what I would call the nonfiction side of the metaverse. An example is cities. So in 2014, at the cost of over $70 million, Digital Singapore is a dynamic three-dimensional city model and collaborative data platform. It's already being used to help autonomous vehicles navigate the streets and the port optimize traffic flows. This already is an example of what I would call the bigger part of the metaverse. The United Nations is committing, I am not kidding, they're committing to building a digital version of Earth as a platform for digital twins of cities, infrastructure, utilities, supply chains, and transportation. Hundreds of cities are now planning to build digital twins in the next few years that will all connect via the UN platform. For the metaverse, there will be a set of standards that allow us to visit locations, spaces, and simulations easily. You'll just teleport in space and time the way we use web links today. This is why it has to be open and not owned, not owned by controlled or governed by the United Nations, not owned by Microsoft or Google or Facebook, but just open the way the web itself is. I want to explain why openness is critical. Today, a car that could give you a ride. It could be just a block away from you, ready to take you to your destination. But if you don't have the right app to get it, you don't know. They don't know. Even if you have all the apps, even if you have tons of apps, they're all small walled gardens. They're all, they're not connected. So it'd be hard to find that car. You'd have to search through and register with all the apps. But on an open platform that lets drivers and riders find each other, you just tell your virtual assistant where you want to go, and the assistant can find those cars, can broadcast a message. It can keep you anonymous. And then the car companies and anybody who's got a car who wants to drive you, who's got the right insurance and license and so forth, can send you an offer to take you on to go. And you would see those offers lined up and you could choose the one you want. And this is what I mean by pull. This is what my book was about in 2010. The concept of pull is that you don't use an app. You say what you're looking for and the vendors respond to you instead of you have to go into each one's app. And this isn't just an economy of scale, it's an economy of choice. So new people can enter the market easily without gatekeepers like Apple, who take 30% of every transaction, and let the markets set fair prices. We're going toward a world of self-custody of assets, so we will be able to do business without intermediaries. As an example, you could buy the rights to play a song as much as you like, but then you could sell that token with those rights directly to someone else without going through some kind of a trading site or an app or paying some other intermediary. And that's something we can't do today. So blockchain, decentralization, and disintermediation will be a big part of the metaverse. When I talked a second ago about the world of offers, have you used Kayak? In Kayak, you say where you want to go, right? And you just dial in your parameters and you see all the offers and then you can take one. That's really what the web should be. It shouldn't be an app. That should be the web itself. And that's what I hope we're building in the metaverse. So over the next 10 years or so, I expect Apple and Facebook to sell more glasses than headsets and more lightweight peripherals than handsets. Even Tim Cook has said he expects people to wear wearables that wearables will outsell handsets over the next 10 years. I don't think we'll carry handsets in 15 years. I think we'll just mostly interact with our environment and others using voice. It'll be easy to go back and forth between immersive and augmented and data environments. You don't have to, you're already logged in. If you have a personal data locker, you're already logged in all the time. So this kind of immersive meeting experience that Zuckerberg is talking about, it's fine. It could replace Zoom or not. I don't really care. Facebook is betting big on it. And if it's going to evolve, it's just not the big part of the web or of the metaverse. And the hardware just doesn't matter. Connections will be all over the place. They'll be baked into our environment. So what matters is your identity and your access to your data, or your access to other data that you either pay for or get for free. So imagine just, this is an example from my book. Imagine designing a product and you invite all your vendors into a common workspace to collaborate. And the design evolves from there with everybody competing and redesigning and iterating together. And that becomes a living digital environment for the product's entire life cycle. Now, we have a few systems like that today. Companies like Boeing and Dassault Systems have created their own, but they're proprietary and they're very expensive. In the metaverse, this kind of platform will be available to everyone, enabling large-scale collaboration and new things that we can't imagine today. Now, listen, where's your personal data? I've given another talk about this to Family Office Insights, and you actually find it on their YouTube channel. And I'm just going to give a little of it today because you don't have your personal data. Your vendors have all your data. This is where your data is. Okay? You understand that. You log in, you register, and you give them your data. You don't have any of it, right? But the personal data locker shifts from vendor push to consumer pull. And you can learn more about it at my website, giordano.institute. I'm raising money for a nonprofit to help set the standards and the governance for this. But here are a few key parts. So in this world, the world I want to create, you keep your personal data, but you don't manage it. Nobody wants to manage his own data. Instead, you pay a small amount to store it, and you hire a number of digital personal assistants to do your work for you. Are you done? Turn around. Okay. You hire a number of digital assistants to do your work for you. These are your digital employees. Some are managers, knowledge workers, some are task-oriented. If you don't like your digital financial advisor, fire it and get a different one in the open marketplace where companies compete with AI that will help you. Now, do we have that today? No, we have Siri and Alexa and hey Google. That's all it's all vendor driven, right? So in my world, I create a platform where you can buy or rent any number of AIs to work for you on your data that you keep under your control. And here's a quick example. So Tesla is a platform. It's a data platform. You probably haven't read the end user license agreement from Tesla, but you can do anything you want with your driving data except move it to another platform or even access it yourself very easily. Tesla owns your driving data. So if you have another car, you rent or borrow a car, you need to keep track of all your transportation data on several different vendor systems. No one's going to do that. So we're trapped in our vendors' apps. Do you see where I'm going with this? This is all vendor driven. But in the metaverse, in the open metaverse, your personal data locker has your driving history in any car you've ever driven. You hired the algorithm that drives whatever car you're allowed to drive. It has a full record of everywhere you've ever been. It knows where home is. It knows where to pick your kids up from school. It can go get your groceries or pick up your mother all by itself. It's your data. It's your driving preferences, and it interacts with your insurance company to let your car start in the first place. It's your choice. If you don't like it, fire it and get a better one. This is the independence between the data and the device that counts. The data is more valuable than the device. You can replace the device with another one, but the data is valuable. You can replace the algorithm, your digital chauffeur, if you find a better one. What's important is that you keep your data. Eventually, you'll have your own pilot, your own career coach, education coach, emergency medical team, financial controller, lawyer, and much more. You'll have an entire team of agents working for you around the clock, but they won't look like this. It'll be your team of personal digital assistants. It'll be software. They will live in the cloud, working for you while you sleep. And they'll be a lot cheaper than the people who come from very fancy schools. In 1994, I taught the first generation of web designers what a website was and how to build one. In 2021, there are a few thousand creators working on 3D immersive and connected experiences. But just as with websites, that number will become millions as we create new worlds, new scenarios, and new possibilities. So in my view, the business model is the key. The advertising model, which began in 1833, has reached its peak in today's internet. Did anybody see the social dilemma? Have you seen the social dilemma? If you have some idea why the advertising model is not good for us. Many companies get revenues from just selling your behavior and your attention to advertisers. This is a vicious cycle that limits our choices and gives advertisers the advantage. Come over here. In the world I want to create, you pay a bit to store your own data. Come here, baby. You pay a little bit to store your own data. You pay a little bit as you move through experiences, as you get data feeds, and as you use your own data to purchase goods and services that work for you, not for advertisers. It's not vendor-based, it's user-based. So in my world, there's zero advertising, which means worldwide, there will be less advertising overall. That would be great with me. People will have a choice whether to get services for free, in which case they are the product, and advertisers are the customer, or they will pay a small amount to be in control. One interesting implication of all this is dematerialization. Glasses and wearables and embedded devices will help us interact with this online world. The only reason to go to a trade show or a business meeting will be if it's better than the digital alternative. And 80% of the time it won't be, maybe more. Riot Games created a virtual metal band for the metaverse. In a recent, I think 2 weeks ago, virtual event on the Wave platform drew 2 million viewers, averaging 45 minutes and 1,000 interactions per person, because they didn't have to get in their car and drive to a big stadium, and it costs almost nothing to do this kind of thing. Sandbox has sold 10,000 plots of digital land in the last 6 months. Global digital game spending is already $130 billion. But listen to this, mobile advertising has broken through $200 billion for advertising on these things. What do you think is driving that economy? Your behavior and your data. So the next evolution, I hope, will be real time, it'll be connected, and it'll be centered on you, not advertisers. So this is a market map from John Radoff, showing hundreds of companies already involved. It's kind of the first major tech wave that is actually being led by big companies rather than by tinkerers and entrepreneurs. Facebook is committing hundreds of millions of dollars. Google, Apple, Microsoft, they're all investing heavily. New startups are springing up every day. There's even a metaverse ETF already of public companies. So a lot is already going, and yet we're still just getting started. We're at the beginning. So I hope this little framework here helps you remember it. I would say 80% of it will take place in the real world, the nonfiction world, as digital twins of cities and infrastructure and factories and supply chains get going, and we'll just be able to take advantage of that data, even just from a phone or from your watch, or just it'll just increase our experience and our effectiveness every single day. It'll just speed up things and make life less clunky in general without having any goggles. There will also be a lot of simulations and experiments that will kind of blur the line between these categories. So my partner Ryan and my other two partners and I are raising a venture fund to build a factory that produces startups for the needs of the metaverse, also using open standards, not just building companies to sell to Facebook. I think that the metaverse is kind of similar to where we were in 1994 when we were starting building the web. And I'm also raising money for the Giordano Bruno Institute, and that's my nonprofit to help with standards and governance. So Mark Andreessen has said software is eating the world, but productivity hasn't really changed that much in the last 20 years. I believe that we're just at the beginning of a new acceleration and driven by connectedness. And I think connectedness will change everything. I've got a channel on Medium called The Metaverse. My book is actually 10 years old, but very relevant. And I'm happy to answer any questions. So let me stop with that. And come back to Zoom. There we are. Oh, and look at all those questions, Wendy. Look at the questions just flying in. Oh my God, it's unbelievable. I don't hear you. I don't hear you.
How's that?
Yeah.
Perfect. All right, everybody, you're welcome to type into chat. Oh, we have one on Q&A. So who is building the digital twin cities for the UN and others?
They're just starting to announce this stuff. You can just do Google searches and see all of the big consulting companies have jumped on this because it's a gravy train for them. Anything the UN allocates to money to, the big consulting firms are on it. So Accenture, KPMG, these companies have white papers on digital twins already. They claim that about 10% of Fortune 500 companies are already working on digital twins. So that's the area that I'm going to spend a lot of time on, because I don't want it to be proprietary. I want it to be very open.
Is venture capital available for the LATAM region?
for this or in general. I mean, when you think about venture capital, you have to always understand the exits, right? Because the exits drive the economics. So in Latin America, the exits are generally poor, and the venture capitalists have to be very, very targeted on what they invest in based on how that money's going to come out. We are targeting the US market because, number one, there's insane tax advantages for US taxpayers. Essentially, our fund will be essentially zero tax. Is it federally tax free? And there are 21 states offering tax incentives for investing in early companies that we pass on to investors. So by far, if you want good returns to investors, the US is still the place. Europe is a distant second for driving returns.
And how important do you think are physical interfaces into the metaverse, like haptics, exoskeletons, force feedback, etc.?
Right. Haptics. I really think that's a small part of it, Wendy. I think it's a common misconception right now that the metaverse is just going to be this kind of virtual world where you have goggles and you're exploring and you're going on roller coasters and amusement parks and or maybe virtual events. And I think that's a tiny part of it. So I think it's just going to bring, and when I wrote my book, I talked to hundreds of companies, and everybody said, if we had real-time data, that would change everything. And that's where I think that's what I would call the metaverse, this kind of real-time and connected.
So I'm going to be wearing my glasses, and I'll be walking down the streets of Manhattan, and I will be able to see all kinds of different things that are going on inside the building that they want to get to me.
And another way to think of it, Wendy, is you won't be wearing those glasses. You'll have your digital assistants working for you all the time. They'll have access to tons of data, and you'll hear on your earpod, whatever, you'll say, hey, there's a sale going on, or there's a meeting taking place, or there's some people around the corner, and your digital assistant will know everything. And it won't just be this kind of immersive 3D experience necessary. There's a lot of noise in that, right? If you're walking down the street and you see everybody's data on top of them, or the sales going on everywhere, you don't care about 99% of it, right? So, let's filter that out. And maybe it'll be visual if you need it to be, but maybe your digital assistants will just help you better than they can today.
What are your views on the haptic suits like the Tesla suit?
I don't care. It's just noise. It's great, but it's this nice little entertainment thing. I'm trying to change the world. I really think this is the next evolution of the internet, and that we will take it all for granted and use it like crazy in 5 years. I think this is more than $1 trillion opportunity. I'm trying to carve out my little $20 billion worth out of this, because I think I can take advantage of it, but I also think I can change and create it at the same time. That's my real goal.
Which protocols, Ether, Solana, et cetera, do you see as currently or in the future being most used by companies seeking to build the back end for the decentralized metaverse?
So I've been involved in blockchain for 5 years. I created one of the big ICOs in 2017, raising $20 million for the personal data locker. Unfortunately, things didn't work out, mostly because of the economics and the tokenomics and things. That the token, there was a lot of suffering in the blockchain world in 2018, even though it's now back. There was a lot of damage done in 2018. So once again, I don't care about the technology. I never care about technology. What I care about is adoption, and that whatever meets the needs will work. So for example, Ethereum is great, but it's very expensive to use. And a transaction on Ethereum today can cost more than $10 just for the transaction. So you wouldn't use that for a whole lot of use cases that would be important to everyday people. Of course, you would use it for some kind of big transaction. So whatever works is my answer, and it will just continue to evolve, and we will continue to solve problems as we find them. And as far as I'm concerned, the technology doesn't matter at all. Like if we don't have blockchain in 10 years, that's fine with me. I'm not married to technology. I'm married to fixing the world.
And the question from Jake is, you are trying to change the world how?
By getting rid of the vendor model. So Jake and others, if you have not seen The Social Dilemma, I really recommend that. About 50 million Americans have seen that. That's on Netflix. And it shows how big tech companies are designing their experiences to get you mad, to make you engage, to keep you on the platform, and to sell your behavior to advertisers. That's all they really care about. You're just the product to them. And that's the world I want to change. I want to, one way to think of it, I want to kayakize the world by making everything this world of offers, where you say what you want, the offers come in, and you choose the offers according to your wishes rather than according to the vendors. I mean, look, Wendy, in a couple of years, your DNA will be available, as a sequence of bits somewhere. Okay, where do you want to have these stored? Because I can tell you for sure that Pfizer will be happy to do it for you, and they will charge you nothing. They won't charge you a thing. It'll be easy. They know you want it to be easy, and all you have to do is buy all your drugs from Pfizer, and they'll take care of it. Done deal. Okay, you just won't be able to transfer that data to any competitors. And that's free. So you can have that world, or you can have the world I want, where you pay a little bit for it. You might pay $3 a year to store your DNA, but when you need a drug or treatment or something, you'll have access to an entire world of potential drug companies that you could interact with and give your DNA to them on a contract, so that they can't keep it. They can use it to make your drug, and then they have to delete it. Things like that. That's the world I want to create.
So Gavin is asking, can this be built on the current internet infrastructure? If not, what is the scale of investment that's going to be required in infrastructure to support the data demand and processing?
Gavin is an ally. He's an old friend, and he's part of the Giordano Bruno Institute Advisory Board. So thanks for that, Gavin. And the real answer is, it's going to evolve the same as the web did. And at the beginning of the web, we couldn't have big images because they slowed everything down, and people were dialing up with modems and stuff. So now, we're going to start relying on 5G more and more. We're going to start relying on high res screens more and more. And all these things are just going to be falling into place. And in the meantime, we'll kind of be use case after use case, a problem after problem that we'll solve using whatever we've got, right? It's just going to evolve. 10 years from now, it'll be different, and it'll just be one step at a time to get there.
Sylvie's asking, are we able to protect back our privacy, and what type of GDPR are we seeing evolving in the future?
Right, so GDPR is a disaster. It is really very vendor driven, and it is not the kind of tool that we think it is. It's not the kind of protection that we think it is. It's very heavy. It prevents, for example, banks love GDPR, and they love all the regulations because it prevents new entrants in the market because they can't afford all the compliance people. It doesn't give you the protection you think. And why do we need it? Because all the vendors have our data, right? But if we have our data, then we are GDPR, right? We always have and control our own data, and we only give it to another vendor or another person under a contract. I would be able to share a photo of us together. We went skiing and took a photo. We could share that with our friends, Wendy, but we would need to have a contract between us to say what we can do. So that takes the vendor out of it, and that gives us more power. And in that world, we don't need GDPR as written. We don't need that kind of government oversight. We need strong cryptography and sensible rulemaking, and then we make our own rules, and then we need to be able to enforce those contracts.
Jake is asking or stating, I've been building the central bank for the metaverse via DNA transactionally for 11 years. How would we work together?
I have no idea, Jake. I'm happy to talk anytime. I'm a central bank watcher, and I write a lot about monetary policy. That's one of my areas of expertise, so I'm happy to discuss.
So David, how would somebody get hold of you? How are you comfortable finding you? LinkedIn, whatever.
Yeah, I'm just David at dsiegel.com. So that's the best way to get hold of me.
Everybody, if you look at the chat box, David put in his email address if you need it.
David at dsiegel.com.
So please take that down. He welcomes your conversations. And Roberto is asking, do you have a specific division for sustainable development?
I think sustainable development is very complicated and it's very political. So I spend a lot of time on this. I write extensively about climate change, and I think it's incredibly political, and I think we have a long way to go to bring science to the forefront of our sustainability conversations. So I'm happy to talk to Roberto or anybody about that, because I'm a proponent of science and the scientific method. And I think there's too much politicization of the sustainability goals.
And David or Roberto, you see David's email. So if you want to, go ahead.
Sure, and I've written a lot about it, so I'm happy to share any of that.
I will say this is the first time I've hosted for Arthur that every single attendee has not only stayed on for the full session, but stayed over time. So kudos to you. Jordan is saying, I don't see David's email. Can you post? Sure, let me just type it in.
Sure. Yeah, I just did. Also, okay. Roberta, you could see an essay I wrote called The Deep Optimism Manifesto. I recommend everybody look that up. I think you'll find that interesting.
So if anybody else has a question, I know some of you are going to have to go, but David agreed to stay as long as there are questions, and I did too, because I think this is so important. I mean, this is our future. If somebody had sat me down like this, not that it was technologically capable 15 years ago, and said, wow, these iPhones are going to be a really big deal, I wish that I would listen. Okay, so some people can't see it. I'm going to try to type it in. David, let me try to do it.
Please, david@dsiegel.com. One thing I mentioned, but very quickly, and I want to kind of come back because it's about sustainability. Is
David, really quick, if I can spell it out for the people who aren't seeing it.
David at
David, D-A-V-I-D at DSIEGEL.com. Okay? For anybody who needs it. And if you're still having trouble, email me. You can find me. You're welcome. I have one more question on the Q&A. Here, who is the most opposed, China, Apple, Pfizer, to an open metaverse? And who is or should be the most supportive?
It's a good question. We live in a very vendor-driven world, and Apple is the gatekeeper. You're not going to have an app on Apple without Apple's approval, and if Apple doesn't like you, you're out. Apple takes 30% of all transaction fees, and a lot of companies fight with and sue Apple. So look, Apple sells hardware, right? In my view, hardware is just going to be ubiquitous and commodity price, right? You know, this is a great thing, but if you don't really need the operating system, if you have your data, this thing should be $20, right? In fact, if I don't have mine, I should be able to just log into yours, Wendy, and then that's mine. I think that I've been saying this for a long time. I think that the hardware will disappear. It's not important, and it will be commoditized to the level that you'll just talk to your refrigerator or talk to your house, and your house will call your kids or wherever you're going. You're not going to need the kind of vendor ecosystem that we have today. Yay.
Yay, no more forced ads.
Well, yeah. Well, also no more. What choices do you have? Apple or Android? Those are your two choices. Alexa or Siri? Those are your two choices. Really? It's 2021.
All right. So I've hosted and I've answered all you guys' questions or asked them, David. So I'm going to ask one of my own, and then I'll get back to the question. But we've read a lot about in the last 10 years these logarithms and how they're hurting and forcing us.
Algorithms?
Yeah, how based on what we're viewing or buying, that it corners us. It starts putting fences around us. Right. So even if I decided to no longer wear black suits and I maybe want to wear suits with color in them, everything coming up my feed is black suits because that's what I bought. So is that going to break us out of this?
Yes, because you will look in my world. I build a personal data locker, and you switch from Facebook to your personal data pod, and then that's your new home online, and you can connect to all your friends or whoever you want. You could have different networks of different kinds, professional, social, family. And then you hire the algorithm that shows you the content that you like, and you train it and it learns and it gives you what you want, and you pay it. How much? Let's say $2 a month. Can you afford that? And well, maybe not, but that's fine. Some people, because some people will say, hey, I like it at free, but free is very expensive. Everyone should understand that free is expensive. You pay out of your pocket far more than you think you do. Why do you think you're worth $73 a year to Google? Why? Because Google gets that $73, and they get it essentially from you by being influenced by ads. Like you say, they're limiting your choices. So you're going to pay maybe $2, $3 a month for your own filtering algorithm. And if you don't like it, Wendy, fire it and go get another one. Go to the marketplace and get a different one that is better for you.
We have a couple more questions. Jake is asking, do you think it'll be difficult to get people to start paying to store their own data, since everyone's used to these free platforms? Or do you think more and more people feel the need to take back control? Jake, and I'll just tell you, I pay several dollars a month for cloud storage, and I'm paying to store my data, and they own it, and they can take it and use it. I gladly.
We're already paying.
Right, I'd rather keep paying and know they can't have it.
We're already paying a lot, right? This whole advertising ecosystem, $200 billion. Where do you think that comes from? $200 billion is not charity money. They get it back in with interest from us, right? So to answer Jake's question, though, the early adopters are important, and medium.com did a great job. There's no ads on Medium, and we all pay about $50 a year for Medium now. You got to start it, by making it free and so forth. And we've got a bunch of ideas about that. But to me, it's not really about the technology. It's about adoption. And Jake is right about that. It's hard. But if we look back 10 years from now and say, well, yeah, we did the hard work, then it will be worth it.
Michelle is asking, what makes a company a good target for investment?
So I do early stage investing. I specialize in early stage, and I'm a venture partner with RightSide Capital. And at RightSide, we do, and you may have heard RightSide because Jeff Pomerantz has presented several times on this platform to Family Office Insights. And in fact, yesterday, maybe, I think. And so at RightSide, we do 4 deals a week, 4 angel level deals a week, every single week. We've been doing it for 8 years. So we are not trying to cherry pick and think we know which companies can win. We have no idea. Who asked that? Sylvie? No, somebody else. The answer is
that was Jake. That was Jake.
That was Jake. Well, you can't tell. No one can tell. You can't tell early stage winners at all. You couldn't have. Most venture capitalists would have passed on Facebook. Almost all, 40 of them did. Okay, you can't tell. So we do it in volume. We take a small piece of a large number of companies and we bet on the whole thing going up. Now at RightSide, they do SaaS companies, and my goal is to do metaverse companies, because I think the whole metaverse sea is going to rise, and that will lift all the boats. So I just want as many boats as I can get.
Sylvie is asking, how about security and access control to avoid someone to breach your data or ransomware?
How is your security situation right now? How is your bank? How many times has Google been hacked? Anybody know? Hundreds of times Google has been hacked. Okay, Facebook went down a month ago, if I recall, and they have your data. They have all your credit card data. How many breaches where millions and millions of credit cards? Do you think your credit card number hasn't been stolen? Really? Seriously? So we're going to do it the way we do it on the blockchain, which is, you have control, you have your own private passwords, and nobody else does. I'm hoping to run this personal data platform as a service, and I will not be able to turn you over to the feds because I won't have your keys. You will have it.
Roger is asking, is there a danger of creating your or my own reinforcing bubble and not exposing ourselves to other ideas, kind of like what we see now?
Kind of worse than what, that couldn't be any worse than what we have today. My goal is to build a horizontal platform that is essentially open source. It's more or less free, and that there will be a competitive marketplace of companies vying for services, so that you'll pick any company can innovate on that platform, and consumers will pick what's right for them. I'm just building a kind of like Linux. It's just a horizontal, like new operating system that has your data and lets you hold it. And then all the utility stuff for solving your problems will be done by private companies. And that's just a market driven.
Jordan is asking, so if you could design the metaverse company that you would want to invest in, what would it look like?
I could name hundreds of examples, and that's why I want to be a venture capitalist. I want to build some serious companies here, and I wouldn't want to cherry pick one. I want to be the guy who they come to for money. That's my role in this. I also want to be the guy who builds the nonprofit and the governance layer that everybody can build on top of, so it isn't owned by Facebook. And you can learn a lot about this if you go to Giordano.institute. I don't know if people can see this, but Giordano.institute. And remember, I've given 2 talks about this platform before with Arthur on Family Office Insights. So those videos are available, but they're also at Giordano.institute. It's all there.
So Jake is saying Google owns our data under the user agreement right now, correct?
Yeah, they own a lot of it because they bought a bunch of advertising networks. So they know everything you've not only typed in, but every site you visited. They know a lot of what you bought, a lot. They do data sharing agreements with tons of companies. So they know if you're pregnant or going through a divorce or having a difficult relationship. In fact, if you're interested in this, a Google data scientist wrote a fantastic book called Everybody Lies. And it's an eye-opening book about what Google knows about you. Everybody Lies. It's an amazing book.
Michelle is saying, if you are already financed by the right side, what are you trying to build new that you are presenting here?
Oh, good. Yeah, I don't want to confuse people. Right Side Capital is a fantastic venture capital fund that I'm part of as kind of an advisor. And I'm starting a new venture fund. And then we're called Outpost Ventures 2. We've already done 1 round of investment in AR and VR companies. Now we're raising our second fund. So it's a completely separate thing, but we're using a lot of the same concepts.
Roberto says, I work on the field of biocultural integrity and social justice. I see immersive technologies as a tool for this end. Currently, we founded 2 communities around this vision, the Mexican Institute of Mixed Realities and the
XR LATAM. Yeah.
Currently, Meta is analyzing legislation to enter the region, and there is almost none. How can we work with you to allow and incentivize open metaverses?
Yeah, I wouldn't work with I wouldn't work with Meta. They have their own shareholder. They work for their shareholders, and that's it, right? They are not philanthropists, but I'm happy to talk with Roberto anytime about it. I'm easy to get a hold of, and we can have a conversation, see how I can help, of course.
And we have from Jake, it seems difficult to educate the masses on the structure and the very same platforms that exploit our data. Do you think these companies will go to great lengths to give the perception to the user that they have more control than they actually do? Example, Snapchat, Facebook, allowing you to download their data.
Yeah, they do. And they're promoting better legislation now, better regulation for their industry, right? But we know what the bottom line is. And I think there will be a lot of resistance, and most of the resistance will come from consumers. Why? They like it free, right? They like it easy. It's going to be a heavy lift to get a bunch of people, but Wendy, the reason I'm so excited about it is that 50 million people have seen The Social Dilemma. So if you haven't seen The Social Dilemma, see that, and then you're going to want to email me and say, okay, I get it. What can we do?
Jake says, I've developed a VR AI trading platform for quantum-enabled AI applications with a leader in the field. Is that something you would look at?
We only do, first we have to raise money. So we're spending the next 6 months doing that. But as a venture fund, we're only doing the very earliest stage. So first money in, we're doing pre-seed investing because that's the most lucrative asset class to mine from if you're a venture capitalist.
Okay. All right, guys, we are 20 minutes over. I'm going to take one more question if somebody has it. Otherwise, I'm going to let this poor bird who's been desperate for some attention get a little.
She's cleaning her feathers in another room. I can't get her over here. Sorry. She's very busy. She has a busy schedule.
Well, Roger, I can't thank you enough. This has been fascinating, and I hope we see more of it. Hopeful for the future. Thank you so much. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. And I believe that Arthur will be sending out from you to everybody who joined us here today, your email, how to get hold of you, what you're up to, so that they can do that. All right, so everybody should be able to connect if you didn't get, oh, what's her name? Is that me, Jake? If you're talking about me, I'm Wendy Kraft. You can, I'm really old, so you can find me on LinkedIn. Oh, the bird. The bird. What's the bird's name?
I can't get it. Come over here.
Is it BB?
Pickle.
Pickle.
Pickle, come here. Look what I got.
Or are you bribing with French fries? Oh no, that's a toy.
Oh, this is seeds. This is seeds. But she's very excited about her feathers. I can't get her. Normally she sits on my head, but that's all right. I have a lot of other videos that she plays a central role in. So, oh, here she is. Okay. Can you say goodbye?
Hi. What a pretty girl.
Can you say goodbye to everybody?
That's adorable. Well, David, thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for joining us and spending your afternoon. We really appreciate it. And I wish you all a great afternoon. Thank you.
Thanks, Wendy.